Well, hello, we're here at CES at the IMC Pavilion with Somos and our good friend Marc Plante. So Marc, tell me a little bit about CES. How's your experience and what's happening? A little about yourself as well.
It's been great. It's always great to come to CES and see all the exciting technology. You've got miles and miles of vendors coming up with amazing new stuff. And I think the one thing that strikes me is how fast automation is hitting the world. We're sitting in the middle of a huge arena full of robots that you would never have imagined a couple years ago.
Yeah, every year it seems like CES has a new theme.
Yeah.
And this is definitely robotics and automation everywhere. So, well, all these cool devices are connected.
Yeah.
So that creates some challenges. As you know, better than anybody, Marc, there's a lot more focus on IoT security.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what's happening there and inform some folks that might not be really paying attention yet what's happening with regulations and policies and why it's important to all of us in the industry.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening from a security perspective is IoT devices are increasingly becoming a huge attack surface for the hackers. They've run through all the traditional mechanisms, and for instance, Verizon does a massive study of internet breaches into enterprises, and the number 2 source of breaches was IoT devices and vulnerabilities in their software. So what's happening is regulators around the world, and there's a lot of talk about the Cyber Resilience Act in Europe,
right?
And a lot of people here are buzzing about that because that's going to be picking up in this year and then going into next year. But we also have regulations from the Securities Exchange Commission in the US. We have regulations with the FDA for healthcare devices, for automotive devices. So there are so many different regulations that companies need to track and be aware of in order to make sure that they don't hit some sort of a compliance issue, which can lead to fairly horrendous fines, up into the millions and billions of dollars for the larger companies.
Wow. Well, Somos has been in the numbering and the registry kind of business. Tell us what you guys are doing to help developers and consumers of IoT really pay attention to this space.
Yeah, so Somos has developed a registry called Somos ID, and what that is it is a registry for IoT devices that captures the intrinsic device identity and security intelligence. What are the device's different identities, hardware identities, network identities, so that people can understand which devices they're working on from different directions. We also track the hardware and software details, including software bill of materials analysis and vulnerability monitoring, which we do continuously. This is really at the heart and soul of all the emerging regulations. The regulators and companies indeed need to understand what's going on inside their devices, what vulnerabilities they're subject to, so that they can react and actually act proactively to secure their devices in a world that's becoming increasingly hostile and dangerous to them.
So it's interesting, last night I was at a reception and there was a solution provider that does gunshot and stuff, and they talked about it as we want to be on the left side of the gunshot. We want to be prior to the event.
Yeah.
So our whole goal, I guess, as an industry is to get enough awareness that we're preventing bigger attacks. And we do that with basically things like identity awareness and constant monitoring.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that Somos ID is particularly effective at. Right now, those who have been in the industry have seen historical patterns where an exploit for a specific piece of software is announced in the news. IT departments around the world scramble for months and months to identify exactly which devices that specific software component is installed in so that they can fix it. It typically takes 5 months to years to get these exploits identified and isolated and fixed. With something like Somos ID, where we have everything inventoried and continuously monitored, you can actually be aware of an exploit and address it before it hits your organization, so that you can proactively, getting on the left side of the situation, manage your portfolio and keep it much more stable and secure.
So the importance of this, and I love thinking about security, and if you look through the optics of IT security, you have a few server makers, you have a few OS vendors, and you constantly get reminded on your laptop, we're going to do an update. And it's all kind of magic behind the scenes, but it's not nearly as heterogeneous as IoT.
No.
So that poses a unique set of problems, and it probably really talks about the importance of what you guys do.
Yeah, I think the one thing about IoT is it is so fragmented. You have thousands of device manufacturers and thousands of component manufacturers, and they all are cobbling together the underlying firmware with open source components from multiple open source libraries around the world. So it's not like you have an Apple phone where when Apple discovers a problem, they push out the patch globally to every iPhone in the world.
And it's all magic.
It's all magic, it's all integrated, it's all connected. What we're doing with Somos ID is providing that connectivity and that correlation to help create equivalent magic for an ecosystem that is otherwise way too fragmented for something like that to happen.
So for a solution developer or an engineering company that's in the IoT space, should they try to craft their own tooling? And if not, how do they get involved with Somos to kind of make their compliance journey a little easier?
Well, I think when you look at a lot of industries, you've got sort of a make versus buy decision. And particularly in an industry that is that fragmented, we've seen some individual manufacturers and solution providers build their own solution.
Right.
But what that ends up creating for an enterprise is now they have a series of silos and point solutions that they have to swivel chair across to pursue and understand their situation. The industry really needs a single correlated source of truth and a single pane of glass so that people can go to one spot to understand their portfolios.
So I like the idea of kind of for the industry, by the industry, and we're here at the IMC booth, and IMC for the last year and a half has been very involved in trying to get ready for this.
Yeah.
So I guess we couldn't have this conversation in a better place.
Yeah, so what Somos is doing is similar to what IMC wants to build on a broader scale for the entire industry. We were a commercial solution, but the idea of IMC offering this as a utility for the industry to enable everyone to strategically and cost effectively share the burden of understanding regulatory requirements, share the burden of documenting and disclosing for compliance purposes as needed across everybody that needs it to the dozens of regulators around the world. It's definitely going to be a hugely effective and efficient solution for the industry.
Well, I think in closing, it's interesting that I think so many people are aware of this, but it's still a very small number of the total population of developers and solution providers. The awareness of the need to be compliant will become much more acute in the next year.
Yeah, I think for those of you that are familiar with the notion of GDPR, when the privacy laws came out a few years back, it was thought of as a local European thing, and then suddenly the world realized that this was going to have global implications, and thousands of companies around the world stopped and did nothing but GDPR compliance. And like you said, there were thousands of point solutions that were originally developed, and as the industry matured, they realized that having GDPR platforms for communications and identity and privacy management for consumers was much more effective and efficient. So that model worked for GDPR, and I think what IMC is doing for IoT security is similar, and hopefully we'll learn from the GDPR lesson and rally and consolidate much more quickly and save people a lot of time and effort and pain.
Cool. Well, Marc, it's been a good journey so far. It's been great talking to you here. Enjoy the rest of CES.
You too.
And thanks for your time.
Thank you for your time.